Yeah, happy to be on, man. It's funny. There's a debate over on Comfy right now. It was a Comfy exclusive run by the Crucible. I think they're going to end up dumping the chat into your chat very shortly. So, but yeah, most every bug is worked out of it. It's fully functioning, very good site. And yeah, I mean, we have replays basically everything a person could want. We have subscribers coming soon. Our own independent payment processor where it goes to a person with a family rather than some fucking soulless corporate shill. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
like it's amazing. We
um,
all talk. We all talk a big fucking game. I do it too. I talk a big game about hating YouTube and hating Jeff Bezos at Twitch. But when I'm driving down the road and I want something stupid to play in the background while I'm driving, what am I putting on? YouTube. And I think that that's one of the things I'm most impressed about you and Rachel, like putting your money where your mouth is, right? What people don't understand, and this is what blows my mind the most about this, it's not just you were like, well, we basically copied a code. Like, I don't know shit about engineering or about creating sort of the technical process of creating these sorts of platforms. You built this from the ground up, right?
correct.
Like, and it took a considerable amount of time, which you were very tight-lipped about. I think it's very impressive to see someone say, you know what, I have a problem with the way things are going, I'm going to do something about it. I wish more people would do something
Yeah,
about
pretty good for a redneck who lives out in the middle of nowhere, huh?
it.
Right?
Well, us
I know. I
rednecks.
did notice Jim Bob was on earlier. He was wearing a flannel shirt, which, according to Zen Shapiro, means he is a BPF impersonator. Right? If you're
Was he
wearing the
smoking?
flannel, yeah, if you're wearing the flannel on stream, you're a BPF impersonator. Those are the rules. So, but
Originated.
but yeah, I mean, pretty good from a nobody from nowhere. That, along with having the fastest growing debate platform anywhere on YouTube, even the alt platforms, the Crucible's definitely doing good things in the quote unquote sector, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So let me put to the two or three people. There might be some people that know me from sort of state level politics that are watching for the first time that don't know you. Let me put it this way: as much as you know, lefties hate me when I just destroy them. BPF's positions are to the right of me, so they hate him even more. But despite that, almost to a person, if you would ask them who's the best moderator in the politics sphere, they would say BPF. Despite the fact they fucking hate his guts, they would still
Uh,
say that, which is a
and they
testament, I
do.
think.
They
You
do
know,
hate my guts,
right?
but we do run about the finest and fairest debate
I
platform
agree.
around, and we get into extremely intense debates, and it's kind of new territory that we've dove into with the types of topics that we have, the types of foundational arguments we have. We get to the heart of issues very quickly, and we're talking about things that aren't really talked about anywhere else. They might be different than things that you might think of, but we're getting to the heart of a lot of significant societal problems right at their core. So, if you want to, you can go to the Crucible on YouTube. You can subscribe. We always have massive debates. We have tons of large ones coming up, in fact. And you'll see Rob Noerr on there debating from time to time as well, as he likes to do, and we like to have him there.
Yeah. I got to say, thank you so much for helping out with the stream. And thank you for getting Jim Bob on. What an interesting guy. That was the first time I've ever interacted with him. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought that it was a great conversation.
Well, so there's a few people in this little arena who have my phone number, who I talk to and chat with, like you, for instance, a few other people, and who I just enjoy talking to, outside of any of this political YouTube bullshit. You know what I mean? Or I just like call them up and like, how are you? And how's your family? And how's life treating you? Well, Jim Bob is about as down to earth a guy as I've ever met in my life, right? He's the kind of guy that you just want to go have a beer with and chat and talk about maybe nothing or talk about everything. Like the way that guy's mind works, you can talk about the most in-depth philosophical thing you can think of, and he'll be right there with you. Or you can talk about why it's stupid that they don't sweep the streets of the fall leaves, right? And he'll be right there with you on that too. So he's one of those rare birds that you find in this arena that you can't kind of help but like.
Well, and it's something that I'd say this about you, and hopefully people think this about me as well. And I wanted, if I had more time with Jim Bob, I was going to bring this up, right? So Jim Bob, he was sort of talking a little about sort of the idea of values, people that are judging things based on values versus people that are judging things based on sort of in the moment, like situation and things like that. I think one of the things that people would say about all three of us, in my limited interactions with Jim Bob, but I agree it seemed that case, is that we could discuss an insane breadth of issues, right? There might be people on a specific issue that know more about that specific issue than you. But if you had to call someone and be like, we need someone to talk about a random topic, you could call us. And the reason is because we have a worldview that's consistent. We might not always be right on the specifics. I might not be an expert on, for example, a foreign policy conflict in, Zimbabwe or something that I don't know about. But once I start to hear about it, I'm consistent and I have a worldview, regardless if you like it or not, that you'd be able to say, okay, that allows me to have opinions on this nature. I think the same's true of you and the same's true of Jim Bob. And that's so rare, particularly in these left-wing spaces or with some of the more nonsensical right-wingers, where it's just like, they need to know what their team tells them to say. So they can't really comment on an issue. Like, look, I was just talking to Dylan. I've heard Dylan say this several times when I debated him. He'd say, well, I wasn't ready to talk about this. That's fucking life, man. Of course. Like, what? You needed to study to know what your position is? You're advocating for an authoritarian policy like lockdowns. If I was going to say I'm advocating you shouldn't be allowed to leave your home, I'd damn sure have a reason why, right? I wouldn't be like, well, I have to think about it. I haven't really thought about it. And I think that's something unique that you see. I think you're very good. Even the people that I heard the great Brittany from Politically Provoked say about you one time. The one nice word she could say is, it is amazing the breadth of issues that Andrew could talk about. And she's right.
Yes. Well,
right.
I think that you kind of stumbled on this, and you're right. Even though I don't necessarily agree with the analysis of how you get there, I do agree that you're correct about this. So I do think that most Christian conservatives do have a moral grounding in which they operate their lives in. But inside this particular space, to say the YouTube sphere, the Twitch sphere, these types of spheres, they're left-wing saturated. And they're left-wing saturated to the point of absolute absurdity. And what they like to bring on is a kicking boy, right? Let's get us a kicking boy. And we're going to bring that kicking boy on, right? And he's going to kick and scream and shout, and we're going to laugh at him, and we're going to dogpile him, and this and that. And between the lefties doing that along with their chats, just overwhelming a person, you'll start to see what would normally be very conservative type people begin to do soft changes on their issue positions. And before you know it, they start sounding like leftists themselves because they don't even think that they can be perceived in any kind of light that's good if they stick by their own moral convictions. And by the way, that's a tactic that has been used inside of these spaces. And when people don't conform to it, they get rid of them as fast as possible. That's the goal. So I always recommend to people like, look, leftists are always lying to you, and they're always gaslighting you. They're pieces of shit. They're scumbags right from their core on through, and they will gaslight you into believing that your moral position is somehow immoral and get you to believe that. And they do this dogpile type thing in order to get that done. That's why you see on Twitch so many of the panels that used to happen were always so lopsided. This was by design. They do try to do this as often as they possibly can. So my perspective on it is like, if you're a Christian conservative, don't back away an inch. There's far more support out there than you can ever imagine for your positions. It's just that if you try to break into these spheres, that's not where your supporters are.
Yeah, I totally agree. Right now, I might be, some of these leftists I don't hate as people, but I agree with you that I think that it's either fundamental hackery or bad faith nature or immoral nature that leads to a lot of these positions. And I think everyone has.
What's to like about a lot of them, right? Like people say this, they're like, well, BPF, you really shouldn't hate these. It's like, what is there for me to like about a lot of these leftists in the sphere? They're scumbags. They're fucking degenerates. Right? They're assholes. They're everything that if I met them in real life, I would want nothing in the world to do with them as a person.
Let me ask you about specifics. What about synth?
Yeah, well, so this is the neat paradigm. Is synth? I remember having a conversation with him one night, and we both agreed, if you're going to negotiate with the other side, you at least want the person on the other side to be sane, right? To be sane. So I'm sane. Synth is sane, right? we hate each other's politics, don't get me wrong, to the point of wanting to, literally strangle each other. But he's sane enough that he can be dealt with. And I'm sane enough that I can be dealt with. That's enough to have actual political discourse. But a lot of the leftists in this space, especially the females, the female communists on Twitch and the booby streamers and these types of, you know what I mean? They're just worthless lumps of shit. And they have no redeeming fucking qualities at all. And I would just as happily never deal with a single one of them again as look at them, and there's always these, bring more women in, bring more. It's like, no, get them out of here. Get these freaking communist skanks out of here. Like, they're worthless. So I don't want them anywhere around. You know what I mean? And it's not a disdain for women, and it's not a disdain for females. It's just, it's not a space that's appropriate for them to be in. They suck in it, and they literally hijack their ideology from large male streamers, or they end up having sex with the large male streamer in order to get brought into their gravitational orbit. It's like, they're just worthless. You know what I mean?
I don't disagree. I do think that there's we might disagree with some people. Like, I like Synth, I like Sonsel. Like, I disagree with their politics. I think they're guys I could see myself hanging out with. I know you don't like Dylan Burns. I don't mind him. I think he's misguided. I think he's partisan. I like.
Well, he can be dealt, but
with kindness,
So guys like Burns can be dealt with. Synth can be dealt with. Sonsel, I turned into a centrist. That was me. I did that for Sonsel, and he needed it.
He's got a job.
Right?
The guy's got a career now.
Yeah, he needed it. He needed to be turned into a centrist so that we could take him over the finish line into the right prism of viewing things. Right. Now, Sonsel will give me indirect credit for that, never direct credit for it, but it was me. It was me who turned out
doing the
Sonsel,
Lord's work. Yeah.
Doing the Lord's work. People like that are they can be dealt with. If you're sane, I enjoy dealing with you even if you're a leftist. But what I'm talking about is the insane communist branch that's inside of Twitch. You can't even go in their chat. Like, I don't know how many times I was banned from a chat just for having the name BPF.
Yep.
Right? Oh, there's a fascist is in the chat. Right now, they could go in with Big Papa Communists, and it's like you're supposed to be there with wide open arms, right? And just hug them and say, well, that's great and swell and this type. It's like, man, no. He's a fuck these people, Rob. Okay.
Well, no, I'll give you an example of something I was involved with you in this. When me and you debated JF Gary Epi and who was the other person we debated that was on his side of that issue? Shit. I'm drawing a blank, but anyways, and it was sort of
Sean Last,
right? It was sort of a white identitarian debate, like bordering on white nationalism. Unfortunately, like, look, you could hate a position and still find someone cordial and debate with them. That's how I feel about sort of JF Gary Epi, Richard Spencer, people like that. Unfortunately for JF, he can't even say what he really thinks because of the fucking authoritarian laws in Canada. So even I would welcome him to be able to have free speech to say views that I massively disagree with, but instead you have to talk under this weird clouded fucking veil, which is shitty. But someone
and everybody still knows what you're talking about. You know what I mean? That's the most fucked up part, is like, what we're talking about, but you just still won't let us talk about it. And that's why I made Comfy. I'm like, no, just talk about it.
Say it.
That's
right. Though JF's case is more than just the platform, it's the fucking country itself. So he'll still have, but I get you. Like, you're absolutely, but you remember that debate, right? Vadim, who's like a left-wing streamer, who's one of the most airheaded, worthless people I've ever seen. He takes a clip of that, right? Where it's like, JF being like, with the, was it Rittenhouse? It was like, everyone was Jews. Everyone around it was Jews. And I'm just like, what? Were they? Like, the prosecutor, and they took that clip and they were like, look at this. BPF and Rob are like going white nationalism. Also, this guy's name's BPF. That guy's a fucking, and it's like, what a bunch of, like, you wonder, is it willful ignorance or is it just grotesque stupidity or a combination thereof? But it's like, it's such dishonest fucking bullshit.
Well, it's neither.
Even when you're articulately pushing back against what the left wing should say, well, we agree with them on this, you still have fucking hacks that are like, oh, white nationalists. They wish they could fucking push back on them as well as we can.
Well, at the upper end of right-wing political commentary, the dishonesty is insane, right? The Ben Shapiro's of the world are some of the most dishonest brokers on planet Earth. The Steven Crowders of the world, completely dishonest brokers, right? They make sure to obscure the facts. They make sure not to tell you the whole truth. They do everything they can to put everything in a paradigm so that it can be packaged in a talking point presentation that can then be handed to the masses to regurgitate. The problem with the left on Twitch, YouTube, places like this, is that almost all of them are dishonest brokers. Almost all of them. So we have ours. There's no doubt that that's true. And, you know, there's lots of us who will call them out and say, shut the fuck up, you dirty, you know, you lying sack of shit. But on the leftist side, so many of them are so dishonest and so upfront with their dishonesty. You think Vadim watched that debate? He didn't fucking watch nothing. He got a little clip sent to him, and he ran with it, right? And he couldn't wait to plaster it everywhere, smear everybody that he could smear, but without doing a shred of research on it, or without even ever watching the damn thing. Now, if the roles were reversed, of course, and we had done the same thing to him, right? He'd be like, oh, look at these uneducated, low IQ conservatives taking these sound bites and trying to make us look stupid, right? The double standard from the left is insane. And when I say the left, I mean progressivism specifically. Progressives are a fucking plague on the planet. There's no two ways about it. They're a fucking plague. Their ideology is a plague. It should be contested. The crucible is not run by somebody who's unbiased. It's run by somebody, though, who will give you an unbiased debate. And that ought to be enough. I don't hide my own political views, and I'm never going to. But what I will do is allow people to come on and have the best quality, high-quality debate they possibly can. And I can put my views away and shelve them for that. And I think that the reason that's so important is because I feel like when our worldview collides with theirs, ours wins, as long as it can be done in an honest way. So it's like, we don't need to cheat, we don't need to lie, we don't need to backstab. We can just have a fair space, and if they have to actually engage honestly and fairly, man, they have to bite a lot of bullets, don't they?
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And, you know, I know that, listen, all of us we might have slightly different opinions on ideology and policy, but more in stark than that is everybody has different opinions or different ways that they do things stylistically or things that they enjoy. One of the things that I absolutely love, it's like candy to me. It's not like you could, you could watch a documentary on elephant seals and learn a lot about them, or on the Civil War or something like that. Or you could watch professional wrestling, just the pure in my veins enjoyment is watching you fucking mock these people that are eating themselves, even those on the right. Like, it's not something I partake in a lot, but my God, I know we'll talk about like sort of the groypers and some of the stuff that's going on the right, but watching these fucking lefties eat each other is one of the most predictable yet entertaining things that you can imagine. Like, everybody knew it. We all fucking knew that it was bound to happen. Now the entire Twitch, the morons that fucking ate Destiny, now people are scrambling to get views on Twitch because they kicked off the one guy that at least at one point, I think he's fallen off, but at least at one point he was able to bring in some sort of political discussion, even if he was completely misguided and wrong on most of the issues. And so they drummed that fucking guy out. And now who they looking to? Keffels? Good luck with that shit. I just find it hilarious watching them, now we're grifting off of, I'm not going to go into specifics. I haven't followed it that much, but it's like, send me money because this thing happened to me. Oh, yay, $100,000. Thanks a lot. Socialism, yay. It's just like, holy fuck. Watching them eat themselves is hilarious to me.
Well, the Destiny phenomenon on Twitch is especially rewarding to most right-wingers because Destiny did single-handedly create his own ship. It was his own ship with his own crew, his own everything. And he brought in an entirely new paradigm into online discourse where he could mix entertainment and debates and political commentary and do it all as a single package. And he built that brand over a long period of time, and he gravitated a lot of people over. And kind of his own in-house policy was he didn't care that much about your size. He would bring you on anyway if you had something interesting to say. That really helped spread his message out as well. Of course, he had guys like Sargon of Akkad. They kind of did something of a similar thing, but he was more into commentary specifically, whereas Destiny did the entire package. But nothing has been more amazing, like you said, than to watch when the person who built the ship, crewed it, and was the captain, had a complete and total mutiny. They threw him overboard, set the entire ship on fire, and now they're floating in the life raft fucking eating each other, right? Because they're out of food. They're in the life raft, totally devouring one another with a fork and a knife, and the people who already made it to shore on the conservative side are going, ha ha, fucker, that's exactly what you get, and you fucking deserve it.
Yeah.
So,
I don't disagree. Yeah. And like, listen, I don't want Destiny to be banned from Twitch, don't get me wrong. But I'll tell you this much. I could show you videos that I've done where people have directed to me when he commented on me specifically, calling me a conspiracy theorist and saying that we should eliminate social media to eliminate conspiracy theorists like me. You know, he's in the past. I know it's been in a distant past, but talked about, censoring people or not platforming people. Hey, man, you fucking play with fire. Compare that to me and you. Not only are we not for deplatforming people, we're like, sure, come on and talk to us. Because like you said, in a fair platform, we'll fucking crush them. We know it. They know it, right? That's why the arrogance of this conversation, and it happens fucking again and again on the left of today's panel, should we have a discussion on responsible platforming and blah, blah, blah. Your fucking arrogance. Like, the arrogance that you have, that you think you're more than what you are, fuck off. Like, your platforming ain't doing shit all. You're bringing on unimpressive conservatives anyways, right? Just so you, like you said, so they could be whipping boys. And the idea that, like, oh, my channel's so meaningful with the 300 progressives that live in their grandparents' basement that watch me, am I responsibly platforming this? Oh, fuck yourself. Like, everyone thinks they're so much more important. You can say what you want about me. If anything, I'm humble. I don't think that I have much importance at all, other than when I go out on these platforms and the issues collide, I'll crush them. But it's so funny to watch these fucking people. Like, they all but are telling you, like, well, we can't keep up in the marketplace of ideas, so we need to discuss making sure we don't bring intelligent people on that could rebut our points. I know, we'll call them Nazis and transphobes. That'll do it. It's so ridiculous.
Well, we have double the hill to climb too, and we have twice the barriers that they do. So the first barrier is we can't really say a lot of the things that we think out loud on these platforms, or else you won't be allowed on these platforms, right? So that's barrier one. But barrier two is that if a progressive does invite you to come on to one of their panels, debates, something like this, you have the second issue, which is that you can only debate with them inside the confines of their worldview, or they'll say that you're bad faith. So if you ask them for justifications for their worldview so that you have some paradigm from which to argue, right? Well, the debate's not about that. Well, what's it about? It's about you having to adopt our worldview and argue inside of it. So, okay. So we'll start the debate off with, I have to censor 99% of my actual views. And then after I censor those views, we'll move into step two, which is I have to adopt your worldview. And then we'll move on to step three, which is that I have to destroy you within your own worldview without actually being able to say the things that I want. Okay, I'll do all of those things. And then you do it, and they still get upset. Still bitch, still whine, still complain, right? And it's like, fuck you. You know, fuck you people. Like, you wanted great right-wing debaters. You said that there weren't any. They weren't sending their best. It's like, well, we're here, fuckers. Where are you? You're hiding in your caves. You're hiding anywhere you can hide to duck it. But more and more and more, they're gravitating into the crucible so that they can engage the right in a fair way. A lot of them actually do think that their value structures, when compared to ours, are better. And they will take that on. And those are the people that we ruthlessly hunt down because they're great. They're great at doing that. They're great at representing their side.
Yeah, and it's something that, like, the truth is, many of these lefties, they're not impressive people that are on these platforms anyways. There are fuckers that
regurgitation machines, dude.
That's right. But there are people that engage in this sort of behavior that sort of are impressive people in some sense. Let me give you an example. Eric Holder. Now, Eric Holder was an intelligent man, former attorney general, right? Eric Holder once said, this country's too cowardly to have a conversation in race. And what he's doing is making that same argument you just said about you have to agree to all of their suppositions, but he's doing it in a more sophisticated way. When Eric Holder says this country's too cowardly to have a conversation on race, what he means is you have to agree with his entire framework and worldview, and then we will have that conversation. I'm fucking willing to have the conversation on race. You're willing. Millions of other people are willing. It's just that Eric Holder says that doesn't count.
And we're willing to do it with both sides.
That's
like
right.
Both sides of the issue. I'm willing to do it with everybody on this viewpoint on both sides. Not just that, on Christian values, ethics, evolution, politics, all of these things that we will dive right into. And what I'm saying is like, you have to understand that within this paradigm, they don't actually want that. They want to draw in a kicking boy. And if they can kick him and make content off of him and literally milk him, they'll do that. And that's what the goal is. It's like, look, it's almost like, here's our token conservative. That's what CTV was. He was the token conservative, right? It was,
I like CTV, but you're right.
Bring this guy on. Well, it's just debates. It was the entire cavalier attitude in which he was dealing with the enemy. It's like, look, you do have to deal with people on the opposite side, and you need to have some type of cordial relationship with them. But being buddy-buddy and smoking dope on stream with them, and talking about my constitutional rights, right? And that type of shit, it's like, no, they're not your fucking friends. They're not your friends. They drug you on, made a mockery out of you, which makes a mockery out of our worldview, right? So this is where I stand with this type of stuff.
Well, I will say this about CTV, I think that he found out the hard way that these people that he thought were his friends that were lefties, as soon as he started to get the authority brought down from Twitch, where the fuck were they? And it's a harsh lesson to learn. It is that you were the court jester. That's how they looked at it. Oh, he's harmless. He's funny, right? And then when the chips are down, as soon as they could stab you in the fucking back, they will. I'm not saying to a T they did that, but so many people that I think he thought were his friends were like, yeah, he should have been banned, or we're just not going to speak up. And compare that to someone like me. I don't fucking like Destiny. I'm not friends with Destiny. I don't like, I'm trying to think of other, I don't like the Surfs. I don't know them very well, but I don't really like them. When their channels got banned, I was like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but they shouldn't have got banned. That's how I honestly feel. The left that were supposedly CTV's friends, they couldn't even muster that. They couldn't even just give like some fucking lip service, just like, well, yeah, that's bad. He's a good guy, that's shit. And I think that's a harsh lesson, but I think you're right. I've seen other conservatives that are fucking fire and brimstone until you get in the panel. Yeah, I can't tell you how many panels, this is a real story that happened, right? I did a panel and the top, it was 4 conservatives, 4 lefties, Biden, Trump, who you got? Who you voting for 2020? So the lefties are like Biden, 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 Biden. Then the righties, it's like Biden, not voting. And then me, I'm like, Trump. Like, oh boy, what a panel. But it's set up like that on the occasion that they would bring someone like me or you on. They have to have the deck stacked. And it's not the deck stacked in, BPF or Rob can't handle 7-on-1. It's not that. It's purely the timing, right? Like, you give me 2 minutes to respond to 30 minutes of bullshit, which I could do and I'll still win. But
no,
that's
just
what's
like,
going
just
on.
Just sit there and take it. That's the
fucking point.
But if you move back, kind of into what I'm talking about with these paradigms. I've told you before that political content's not really welcome anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's left or right. Mm-hmm. But what has happened, what happened specifically to CTV, should really be a warning shot that people should understand. I was talking about the T-Mafia long before they were calling me a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist for expressing that this was really going on and that this was going to be the most detrimental part of the future for conservative and progressive politics. And people went, what are you, some kind of fucking nutcase? No, as it turns out, it was completely validated. With CTV's major mistake was that he combined the symbolism of Nazism, right, and at the same time made fun of the rainbow flag. My God, it was a crime against humanity, and he had to learn his lesson, right? They had to make sure that he was drubbed through the town square, tarred and feathered, and he went, where's all my friends? And I went, well, you were too busy smoking dope with them on screen to remember that they weren't really your friends at all to begin with.
It
right?
Sucks.
So this is the
I think
way
he's a
that
nice
this
guy. I
works.
think it sucks that happened, but you're not wrong about this specifically. You're not wrong.
Well, nice
That's
guys
what
finish last.
That's true sometimes. That's absolutely true. There's time and a place for it. There is. I think that one thing, I can say this about you too. I think you're more hostile than me as a rule of thumb. And when it comes to general interactions with this, but even you talking now, I think people would be surprised. I think that both of us are measured in our tone that's sort of reciprocal to the people we're interacting with. So we could debate someone that we massively disagree with. Again, it doesn't have to be on the left. It could be on the right. It could be like a JF Gary Epi. You watch that debate. We're not name calling. We're not, right? We don't agree with the position, and we might hate the position, but we're able to have a cordial relationship and deal back. You don't have to just come in and be like, fuck you. Like, that's not what we're talking about. But what we're talking about is sort of this mentality where it's like, well, I'm going to wilt on my positions because, you know, I want to be seen as likable, or I want this group of people. And I think it's a mistake. I'm going to tell you, like, this might be controversial, but I'll tell you one of the reasons I think it is. I think people are so desperate for viewership and clicks that some of these people that fancy themselves right-wingers that don't have a strong ideological backing, they go on these places and they say, well, if I just get chummy with them, these people will watch my show, right? That's what'll happen. I'll get Dylan Burns' audience when he's done streaming to watch my show. I'll get Destiny's audience to watch my show. That shit ain't happening. One, you're dumb to think that way anyways, but second, it's not going to bear out for you. It's just not. And so, like, we talk about this all the time. Selling out is bad, but what amazed me, and I know you've said this, is how little people sell out for. Like, you can see someone selling out where it's like, well, you went from a 40 viewer Andy to all of a sudden you got 10,000 people watching you. But people are selling out from going from 40 viewers to 42. It's like, hope it was worth it,
Well, so you hit on something that's very key there, which is the Fouian deal. That is not just internet politics, but politics in general. How much people will sell out for so little. When they make, I would think if you were going to sell your soul, you would at least try to get the best price you can for it, right? But they seem so desperate that they'll take whatever crumbs these people will give them. And the thing that's so funny is when they sell out to these leftists in order to get their viewership and the crumbs off of their table, they end up with neither their backbone, their politics intact, nor do they actually end up with any of the crumbs either, right? It reminds me of an old joke, right? It's a very quick joke. I'll tell it real quick. This guy, he has a hump on his back, and he goes out in the middle of the forest, and he's praying really hard that, he just wants this hump to go away. His life is miserable. And the devil comes out, and he says, "What's wrong?" And he says, this hump is terrible, I just want to get rid of it. And the devil says, "Oh," snaps his fingers and the hump is gone. This guy says, "Oh my God, this is great." He's talking to a friend of his in a bar later that night. His friend has a club foot. And he says, "Man, if you go out, you can make a deal with the devil in the forest, or just like I did." And he took care of this hump. The guy says, "Wow, that's great. I'm going to do that." So he goes out to the forest. And he has his club foot, and he prays real hard, and the devil appears. And the devil says, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Oh, I got this club foot. It's terrible. It makes my life awful." And the devil says, "Well, how about this hump?" Right? How about this hump?
Yeah,
so
that's great.
And this is the way that politics works online, and it is one of the messages of the Grapers that's true, is that you have to be a dissident. And all a dissident really is somebody who moves away from the normal right-left paradigms, not into any type of third position even, but only into a position of sanity. And that's what's missing from most of these spaces. Is like Comfy.stream's entire slogan is just be sane. We'll allow almost anybody on if they're sane. The problem is that actually reduces our pool so low, there's very few people to draw from.
Well, I think that think of what it takes to willfully do what we're doing and not be a fucking psychopath. Like, be honest about it. Like, there is this drive. Take politics out of it. Just take streamer in general. Of course, there are low-level streamers as a hobby that's just like, I like playing video games and I don't mind people watching. I'm not saying those people are insane, but the type of people that want to put so much of their personal self out there, like on camera, that want to opine on issues, many times issues that they just don't know much about. There are different ways to get there. One of the ways is to not be the steadiest psychologically. That is one of the more common ways. I was talking to you about this the other day on the phone. It was like, are we really surprised that a lot of these big content creators who I don't fucking follow at all, like Ms. Kiff and this person and that, it turns out they might be shitty people. They might have got up to shitty things when they were meeting people in real life and in public. No, you mean people that, do this shit? Ethan Klein from H383, he might be a shitty person. No, I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear this, right? And so it's evident, like, it's hard to find the type of mentally stable person that does something like it. I'll give you a good clue. You want to know a good place to look at? Someone who has a job and a family who happens to be doing this. There's a good pool of people that might be sane, right? Someone who doesn't have a job and doesn't have a family, probably if they're doing this, it's going to be an uphill battle to find sane opinions from them.
Well, the motivations to do things that are out of bounds are greatly increased if you have no grounding in your own personal life. So if you have no family, you have no wife, perhaps not even a girlfriend, things like this. It's very easy to get to online antics, sleep with a bunch of different people, perhaps, if you get popular enough. Start hitting on people you shouldn't be hitting on, start doing all sorts of things that you should not be up to. And all of this feeds attention back towards your centralized channel. This in turn gives you massive dopamine inputs, right? And all these different hits from your Twitter going off constantly. It's very difficult for most people, if they enter this arena, to walk away, even if they only have a very tiny amount of success, right? So when you look at the metric, is like, this online arena, it is very corruptible, you know what I mean? And you have to consistently be on guard. And the best way to do that, when they say touch grass, they're not kidding. And what that really means is don't lose your connection with physical reality. Remember what this is. Remember that if you're not talking to these people on the back end, you don't have their phone number, you guys aren't helping each other out in real life, you're not showing up to each other's barbecues and things like that, or making plans to do so. They're online content creators, are not your fucking friends. And don't enter yourself into a parasocial relationship with them, or you're going to find out real quick that it's not what you thought it was. You know what I mean? Don't lose that connection to material reality.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's, again, I think a lot of people, it's unfortunate. I'm not going to use the term incel, but sort of that sort of mentality to an incel that can't find, a woman to be in a relationship with, a committed relationship with. Imagine in a non-sexual or romantic relationship, you're just talking about friendship relationship. I think a lot of people in these spaces, you're right, aren't touching grass, or they just don't have the social ability to get out there and communicate and associate with people in the real world. So they end up here, and it's like, well, we're trying to build this sort of network that traditionally people in our, like people that work with their hands and have real jobs and shit, it's like you go to work all day and it's like, hey, I'm meeting people. Want to go out to the bar afterwards for a beer? Yeah. Oh, you and your wife want to come over for dinner? Like that's how traditional, like normal people fucking interact, and these people don't have that. So they end up with these fascinating
and they've never
right.
had it.
Right.
That's the other key to hit on, is like, we grew up outside of the digital age. It's not that we would not have been in that same paradigm. It's that paradigm didn't exist to exist within.
Exactly. Yep.
So, in many ways, we're advantaged that way. We can tell the difference between the sane and the insane because we've been forced to engage with material reality, objective reality, and then we've had to deal with the consequences of both of those things. The online world is still very much the Wild West. In many ways, you can be completely anonymous and live consequence-free on the internet and live vicariously through these different creators and develop this parasocial relationship. I can see where it would be very appealing for a person to do so. It's an escape hatch just like a video game would be, or just like any number of addictive personality disorders would be, moving into these parasocial relationships. And when you are born into that, right, I think that it would be very difficult to walk away from it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things, and make no mistake about it, this isn't unique to the left. One of the people that you've been in a feud with quite often is the Groypers, and Nick Fuentes, sort of America First. And I think you've articulated this, that it's basically a cult. And Nick's a talented guy in that he's charismatic, and he hit on a vein of some truth, that there are disaffected young people that feel that the system fucked them up. Right. And the problem is, right, that's why I don't harshly judge a lot of these groupers. There's difference, right? There's some that ought to know better because they're adults of our age that are exploiting fucking kids. And then there's people like I was into, the Dead Kennedys and fucking Slayer, when I was in high school and I was going to metal shows and, I was partying my ass off and things like that. I went through a phase, right? Don't get me wrong. So I get it. I get where a lot of these young people are coming from, but it's, the people you blame are the people at the top of that hierarchy that are basically running a cult that know better. And it's sad to see people being fucking taken advantage of that are going to regret this shit because the internet's forever. And somewhere 10 years down the road,
This is the same thing that your father would have said about hippies, right?
Yep.
So the dissident right wing has become the new counterculture movement, where dressing stylish and appropriately, looking your best, presenting yourself in the most optical way possible, doing all of these different types of, self-manicuring and things like this, working out, has all bled into a mixture of both the online manosphere and then into dissident right-wing politics, and they've been combined into the same type of kind of counterculture counter-revolutionary movement. But it was no different, really, than the 1960s hippies, the 1970s feminism waves, into the 1980s multiculturalism craze, into the 1990s punk rock, alternative music style, grunge scene, right? They're all kind of cut from the same cloth. They always blame former generations for the current problems, but still look to the older generations for the results. So they say, well, the boomers are responsible for this. We need to go back to being like the greatest generation, right? So it's like, look to the old generation for both guidance and look to the old generation to blame. There's nothing new under the sun. And by the way, the rise of communism is exactly the same way, looking once again to the older generations for guidance, while at the same time blaming the older generations for the current status quo. And it's like, look, I understand why you're upset. I get why you're so angry, but one of the big things that you're going to have to contend with in dissident politics is that you have got to find a balance for the sane. That's what people do in the end up responding to. Your whole life's goal, if you had one life goal to make, should just be not to join the throngs of insanity, because it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, it definitely is. And like, you said something interesting. We were talking sort of about the Groyper movement and sort of the horseshoe theory and the parallels you see with a lot of these behaviors on the left. One of the most interesting things I've heard anyone talk about this was this sort of idea of going along with this sort of idea of rebelling and being counterculture, right? And now there's a movement of some of these right-wingers that's like, it's cool to fucking be an incel. It's cool to like shirk masculinity. And you're like, motherfucker, they're cutting their dicks off. That's what the left's doing, right? Like, you ain't going to you can't
out edgelord the left. And so this is one of the things I'm talking about with sanity, is like, you might think that it's a very edgy and angsty message to say, we absolutely demand that we be able to say the N-word on different platforms, right? We demand that you allow us to say, or question, the events in history that led to millions of deaths, let's say, right? We demand that you do these things, and it is edgy, and it does bring eyeballs to you, but you can't out edgelord men who are cutting off their penises, talking them inside out, and letting men fuck the hole. You can't out edgelord that. It's not a battle that you can win on the edgelord front, okay? So, like, you gotta bring some sanity back. You're not going to be able to outdo that. And by the way, why would you want to? Like, why would you want to try to outdo that? I couldn't imagine how that could even be outdone, but I guarantee you it'll be outdone by the left and not by the right.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. That's not to say, again, I think we both agree that there is historically something to speaking to the disaffected youth, right? And there are patterns that you could see throughout history. It's weird, there's stylistic changes in the age of the internet and thing, but that sort of mentality has existed. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But the question is, what do you do with it, right? And like, what's the utility of, like, you could be counterculture and use it for utility and actually use it to be a positive thing. But what I see is when you just say, well, I'm going to be edgy, which is what I see with a lot of like these groypers. My first interacting with them, I think you remember this, you warned me about them. I didn't know them for shit. And they were ganging up on Stardust and just racial slur, like 4 of them. So I went in and was like, look, I'm not offended as much as the only thing I'm offended about is how fucking unfunny you are, right? And like, if you think that you're representing some political position, you're not. People will run from you because you're just being edgy for the sake of being edgy, and it's fucking cringe. It's just, it sucks. It just sucks. What you're doing sucks. It's not funny. It's not edgy. There are people that are edgier than you, like you said, and I think that
Well, it's also, you have to remember that this is a joke wrapped within a joke, right? This is a serious political movement that doesn't take itself seriously, and that's the serious part, right? So they always try to wrap things inside of wrapping things inside of irony as a mask for them to try to attack the perceived enemies that they decide that they have on a given day. One of the most interesting parts of this dissident movement is that they follow figureheads that seem to be diametrically opposed to their own worldview, and yet will say and justify it by saying, look, we use irony and we don't care. As long as our message is getting put up front, we'll sacrifice morality for it because only the political victory matters. That is the definiendum of a Faustian deal. Compromising all of your value structures for victory is not victory.
Right?
Okay, it's not victory. All you have done is become the thing that you fought against. And this is the problem with modern dissident politics, and why I think that these organizations are on the decline, will continue to decline until there is no organization left. People will move on to the next thing. They'll move on to the next Andrew Tate, the next faux messiah that comes along, who gives some type of strongman element for society bad. We need to move the goalpost back to something less bad. That seems to be the rallying cry now. But these paradigms eventually have to fall apart necessarily, because they can't sustain themselves forever.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think that it's unfortunate how people fall into this trap, right? And realize like they're basically the monsters that they ate, you know. I don't follow this as much as you do, but you know, there was sort of a relationship between Destiny and Nick Fuentes where they're friends in real life. But I don't give a shit. They do what they want. I don't care about all of that, right? But at the end, why does it fall apart? Because Nick's crew has people on there fucking calling for the deplatforming and the brigading of people like Max that are Destiny's friends. And then they have to be like, no, we didn't do that. And it's like this weird fucking like, well, we lashed him. We gave him a good tongue lash. We kept that guy in order. It's so fucking weird and creepy. And like the word cult definitely it's like, you know, this public shaming that someone went out of line, but only when it jeopardized their influence and their relationship. The whole thing is so fucking unnerving and creepy. It's just like, God
well, it
damn.
is. And then you touched on something that's really important there, which is that depending on which streamer you see on which day talking about that incident, some of them will say that it was a stroke of genius on the part of the Groypers to do this mass reporting and then decide to distance themselves from it and make it look like Destiny was running away from Nick. Or you'll tune in and they'll be saying, no, what really happened here is that Big Tech shouldn't have done that. And Destiny had justification to walk away from Nick, right? Depends on who you're asking. And it depends mostly on who the person is that has the clout that they're trying to impress. If they think that person will like and receive one of those messages better than the other, they'll use them interchangeably, right? Again, this is not something that people easily forget. They don't easily walk away from it. And people have long memories on the internet. It's hard to bullshit your way through for too long. And these relationships which collapse anytime the dissident right engages with these people, doesn't matter if it was Anglin or any of these different people. You can't even say that guy's name. You get deplatformed for just saying the name, right? You can't engage with what these people are saying or doing or this type of thing, and they'll do anything to remain inside the sphere of what they consider to be relevancy. What's relevancy to them? I don't know, like Twitter trending you or different things like this. That means you're still relevant. You're still in the game. You'll see these tweets like, we're so back. It's like, well, where did you go to begin with, right? Back from what? Right? The whole shtick is designed around trying to stay perpetually relevant. And the thing is that's impossible. Your message will wane, right? It'll have its day, and then its day will be over. And there's nothing you can't just perpetually sustain it. You have to be mobile enough to move your message with the current times. And that's one of the reasons that progressivism has such a clear march forward, and right-wing politics not so much. We have a hard time adapting to what's going on in the current purview of politics, and whereas progressivisms they're always setting the trend for what's going on in the current purview.
That's such a smart thing to say, because like, take an issue. So I focus more on like political situations that are occurring in the day, right? Take this Paul Pelosi debate. I've been begging people, stop fucking talking about it. The mere talking of it is allowing the left to control this narrative, right? The fact that it's even an issue, right? Because it's purely an offensive issue for you. Your choices are, this is the two possibilities. One, the Paul Pelosi situation proves the dangers of right-wingers and why we're justified in the censorship and the government sort of attacking these people. Or two, there's something fishy about this Paul Pelosi situation. I think they're covering something up. By playing that game, you've already lost. The left is absolutely incredible in understanding the importance of setting the narrative, right? And it happens both in the cultural way that you're talking about.
Well, they have $1 trillion globally. $1 trillion invested into think tanks whose job is to set daily current narratives. Mm-hmm. And that's why the right wing is considered reactionary, because we fucking are. We're always reacting to their narratives. We are never able to set a narrative for ourselves. That's what the brilliance of what Fuentes and the Groypers initially was. They were like, we're going to set the fucking narrative. Fuck you people.
Yep.
But now it's still chasing the same coats, right? Chasing the same coats, chasing the same clout, chasing the same exact things that originally they had rejected, to say, we're going to be the narrative, to the trendsetters. We're going to be the people who set the narrative. Fuck this. Fuck your $1 trillion, multi-billion dollar think tank industries. We reject all of that right-left paradigm. But now it's back to almost default politics as usual. It's almost like, they became the same TPUSA type style thing that they hated so much. And this ties into exactly what you're saying when you're talking about the Pelosi narrative. Of course, the left attached itself immediately to the beating of Pelosi's husband and said, look, now you can see just how dangerous this rhetoric is. Now it's going full scale against our politicians. They'll spin that narrative into outright treason for the right if they can do it. And the right has no great defense mechanisms against this. We don't have these great think tank industries that set daily narratives and press releases so that we can combat this with better propaganda. We're left completely at the mercy of these low-level commenters, either on the internet or on Fox News, things like this, who don't actually affect policy. They don't have that same type of backing. So, I mean, the right's pretty much fucked because we have no institutional power whatsoever. So it's like they can send all of these talking points to every college on planet Earth, and they're just going to be regurgitated in the town square.
And what's crazy is it ingrains in you subliminally, right? It really does. So, like, without batting an eye, unimpressive people, I'm guilty of this too, some of the most unimpressive people you'll see, we know that this is the way things go. For example, I will have person after person when I call it, like, I'll say, well, here's what I say to Paul Pelosi. Did you hear about Pat Harrigan? Pat Harrigan's a Republican North Carolina state Senate candidate who wrote a letter a couple weeks ago that his opponent filmed an ad in front of his home, and he said he now wears a bulletproof vest and worries for the safety of his kids. Someone shot into the bedroom of or the window of the house that his kids were staying in.
Nobody gives a shit.
No, that's right. When I say that, you know what the lefties that watch my show, you know what the reaction is? Well, what do you say about Paul Pelosi? Right? And we all understand that, right? We all understand that that's the nature of things. They set the tone. My comment about Pat Harrigan is merely a reaction to their comment about Paul Pelosi. They set the even when I'm going on offense, I'm responding to their narrative. And it's just ingrained in even these unimpressive people subliminally that it's just like, well, everything you say is whataboutism. Why is it whataboutism? Because we set the fucking narrative. And so if you don't want to talk about the narrative, then it's what about. Pointing out my double standard is fucking whataboutism. And it's funny because in a way that is one of the effective things the Groypers do. You look at them not just issue-wise, but character-wise, the massive contradictions. Like, I don't know a lot of these people as well as you. I used to watch the Ralph retort a little. I know a little what Ralph's about. Now, whatever you think of Ralph,
but he's the most honest of them. He's the most honest with his own degeneracy, right? It's like
that's the point. The degeneracy.
At least I know what I'm getting. At least I know what I'm getting.
But right? That's the point. That's the weird contradiction that it's like. I'm not saying this necessarily to condemn Ralph. I'm not saying that. In fact, like you said, it's almost like. How does Ralph fit in with that worldview of like this Chad, like family values man? He doesn't fit in, but it's like the contradiction is totally irrelevant to them. How does Brittany fit in with sort of that worldview? She doesn't. Right? It represents everything that they claim to be about. And again, I'm not saying that to insult Brittany. I'm just saying you can't help but notice the fucking glaring contradiction. And it doesn't matter.
It's pointed out by hundreds of people daily. Right? But there's not going to be anything to rectify it because now the goal is to endlessly chase the clout dragon. And that's not going to change anytime soon in order to get back whatever the repertoire of relevancy was that once at least their perception is that they once enjoyed. But it's not just a problem with Groypers, and I don't even pick on them specifically, though I do enjoy picking on them, don't get me wrong. I think that the most important thing to focus on in current politics period for the right wing is the thing that we miss the most. Just like when I explained what was going to happen with transgenderism going into the next year and a half of politics a year and a half ago, and it came to fruition right in front of us where cancel culture became the new thing, and they began to literally deplatform anybody who said anything contrary to whatever the current gender narrative was. I knew that this was coming, rang the alarm bells on it, but the trenches remained empty. It was just BPF literally raging against the machine himself, and then validation comes later, but then it's too late. So heed what I'm saying now, because there's great hope. And the great hope that you need to put your faith in is the institution that's left to conservatism, which is churches. Mm-hmm. The churches are still, and the institution of the church is still not completely bastardized. It's not totally infiltrated. It's not LGBTQ'd to death. It's not these things. There are some that are, but this is still the most powerful grassroots and groundswell organization left on the face of planet Earth, and we don't utilize it for anything. We don't use it to push forward the correct messaging, and yet it was the only bastion during the lockdowns that really stood against the lockdowns. This was and still is the power that conservatives have, but we don't wield.
Listen, there is a reason that in state after state they lock down churches, right? Of all the things you could think to lock down, like just from a purely numbers perspective, like really the amount of people like per building that are in these churches, that's worse than casinos in Nevada? Of course not, right? Like, of course we realize that. Why did they lock down churches? Why is there such an attack on church and religion? Because you shall have no God above them. One thing you have to give the devil its due is they understand what's a threat to them. And those are the things they attack the most, right? So one of the reasons I think that you see such an attack on, Christian values and things like that is they understand it's a threat. So the question is, will we understand that that's a potential weapon for us to use? That's a potential offensive, institution that we could fight back? Because I say it all that, and there have been inroads made in some churches where the woke shit is coming in. But in general, I say this all the time. Name me an institution other than the church that you consider right-wing. I can't think of one of a major institution. Not corporate America, not social media, not the tech companies, not academia, not the entertainment industry, not politics. Like, where is it? And we're talking, this isn't a fringe movement. Like, even if you'd say, what's the best they could argue? Like, well, that's only 40% of the population. 40% of the population with not one institution that has their backing, save some sections of the church. Like, there needs to be a pushback, and people don't like it when I say that. We might have disagreements on exactly what to do, but I think here's something we agree. There's no fucking easy fix. It's not like, well, Trump won 2024. It's all done now. Like, no, it's going to take decades.
But you also have to remember there's another reason that maybe you don't think about, that a lot of people don't think about, for why churches were the first target of the lockdowns. And this is because Christianity, contrary to popular belief, is a protected religious class. It is a protected class. It's just as protected as race. It's just as protected as sex. It's just as protected as these things. It is a protected class. So one of the things that people who speak out from a religious standpoint against actual government authority, they have a layer of protection that other people don't enjoy, who are acting as self-actors, meaning they're not using the power of the religious institution and the religious institutional backing to say, this is against our religion, therefore it's against the First Amendment. One of the reasons that they want to shut these places down so badly is because it takes away the protection of the class, right? We can actually utilize that same weapon that the left uses against us back against them.
Yeah, it's very... one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when you delve into these sort of situations with the Groypers or with the insane lefties, do you do so purely because it's absolute entertainment to you? Or do you have a higher point that you're not just talking to your audience, but also talking to people that might be within there, where you're trying to make a point to them? I'm not going to judge either way. If it's just for, shits and grins, that's fine too. But I always wondered, what are you getting out of it when you wade into that? Is it purely entertainment, or do you think that there's more to it than that?
Well, try to understand that the fight with the Groypers never should actually have happened. I was perfectly content letting them go do their own thing, mind their own business, and I mind my own business, which was an optimal relationship. Doesn't matter if I agree or disagree with them, what could have happened is a divergence where we never crossed each other's threshold. The problem is they won't let you do that. The Groypers don't just let you say what you want to say without coming in and saying, no, you need to do this, you need to do that, or we'll deplatform you, or we'll do this to you, or we'll do that to you, right? Once the death threats started coming in, and once the rape threats started coming in, that's when there was a call to action, and I started opposing these people much more publicly. But still to this day, right, if they would knock that shit off, I'd still go my own way and let them go theirs. You know what I mean? There's no sense in me continuously punching right, though there is some sense in it to a degree, and I'm never going to say that I'll never speak about something that Groypers do again, because they do a lot of stupid shit. But there should not be this type of conflict that happens endlessly and nonstop. It's not particularly productive. Now, that said, it's really fucking fun to laugh at these people, okay? Like, it's beyond fun to make fun of Beardson Beardley and a bunch of these different clowns, right? And I enjoy doing that, and probably will continue to enjoy doing that in the future. Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fun to do. But even that said, right, it's way more fun to make fun of leftists, especially doing a trash talk and things like this, because they're way more insane even than the Groypers are in a lot of respects. So it's like, it would be far better if the Crucible and the Groypers just never tangled up. You know what I mean? But at this point, I don't see that happening. That would require somebody reaching out and being like, hey man, why don't you do your thing? We'll do our thing. That'll be that. They don't operate that way. It's either ride or die, right? You got to be with us, or you're diametrically against us. And that's really too bad, because it destroys avenues for cooperation where there ordinarily should be some. For instance, you're more of a libertarian than I am, for sure. It's not even close. There's many issues that we have large opposition on. But you're enough on my side that's enough. You know what I mean? Right. That's enough. I'll take it, because we need all of it that we can get.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let's get some of the larger issues buried before we start eating ourselves, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well,
so just to kind of
answer that question. That's what blew my mind about the Groypers, right? My limited interaction. Okay, it starts contentious because I'm like, what the fuck? It's just, what's this about? Just racial slurs? Like, I want to really drop the hard R on the N-word. That's it? Is that what this movement is? Like, that's what you're doing? Right? And I asked them in that interaction, I was just like, what's your positions? I might agree with you on something. What's your policy? What's your ideology? You know, and basically they just come with this like fucking scratching the surface bullshit of like, you know, basically be a giga chad, you know, you gotta be this fucking alpha, blah blah blah, family life, blah blah blah. And it's like, oh, so you all have kids? You're married?
No,
oh, none of you are. You know,
let me just let me address this guy real quick who's hammering your chat, OrthoBro777. He's hammering your YouTube about Adam Green, right? So let me get this right. Here's how stupid your logic is. He's saying it's a contradiction that I'll allow Adam Green to stream on Comfy.stream and still at the same time remain a Christian. This is bizarre to me, because you have guys like Destiny and Hawes and all kinds of secularists who are on Cozy TV, and yet that's no contradiction. The difference is that I've said publicly that what Adam Green says I'm completely opposed to, and have debated with him multiple times on it, but still believe that he should have a platform for which his views can be engaged in good faith in. Because I think that if they are engaged, they will be shown and proven out to be incorrect. But I'm not going to watch anybody get deplatformed who has views that they want to espouse. I think that that's fine, and that's where we can begin to really engage and unravel it. And the guy's not hopeless. I think that he can be brought back to Christianity. I don't think that he's nearly as diametrically opposed to it as you think. So, and also, just like, let me follow up the last thing on that with, and go fuck yourself. So I wanted to make sure that you got both of those messages clear. One, there is no contradiction, and two, go fuck yourself. Anyway, back to you, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah, it's similar to this shit I get. It's like, you know, I don't want to see people get deplatformed. You know, yesterday it was, or 2 days ago, I was talking about like, it's outrageous that we now find out, as I knew, that the government is pressuring social media companies to censor what they call disinformation. What's disinformation? Anything they think makes them look bad, right? And then some asshole is upset because I'm warning people that if you're using my chat to say, we're going to brigade and get people canceled, get the fuck out of here. But how can I believe that if I'm against the government censoring people and such? It's like, you know, I could give you an explanation, or I could give you a
but wait, Rob,
yourself.
you're about to share a platform with Adam Green, so you must be promoting Adam Green. You share a platform with Sonzel, so you're promoting Sonzel. You share a platform. Shut the fuck up with this. It's low tier. It's not only low tier argumentation, but it's fucking stupid. It's retarded. Nobody's buying it. Get the fuck out of here with this. You come back to me when you have something that's worth engaging with. Dumb fuck. Right?
Yeah,
Get back to me when you have something that's worth talking about, because I would eviscerate you. You guys are so stupid. You don't think past the first thing that pops into your head. It's just, it's ridiculous. Anyway, I did want to address that, right? You might as well address the critics while I'm here.
Yeah, why not? I totally agree. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's funny. Like, one of the things I say, you know, I was talking to Jim Bob about this as well, is, you know, this idea that our greatest strength's our greatest weakness, where we will have self-reflection. We will listen to someone criticize and say, we think that this doesn't jive with your worldview. We think that what you did here, or here's something that you support. Like, let's, for example, say if you said, BPF, you know, coming from sort of my orthodoxy Christian view, the candidate I'm supporting is X. And then if someone came out and said, but what about this that your candidate supported? You might say, yeah, that's wrong. I agree, but here's why I'm still defending him, or maybe I've changed my mind or whatever. We'll do that. But so many of these, you know, lefties and maybe some extremists on the right, they're unwilling to do that. And they understand that this is a huge weapon. So like this person that says to you, that's like, well, you can't be a Christian if someone's on your platform that espouses anti-Christian views. They would never hold themselves or the people they support to that same standard.
No, well, they don't. They don't. They'll make excuses for him, in fact. Remember, 3 weeks ago, Destiny and Nick Fuentes were besties. They were best friends. Right? And that was fine because Destiny's based. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. He's a coomer who lets other people come on his wife. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. Okay? You got nothing. He's a coomer who lets other dudes jizz on his wife, man. And you're like, oh, he's based. Like, get the fuck out of here, you fucking loser. You fucking twit. You dumb fuck. You know what I mean? BPF, would you say that to Destiny's face? Yes, I would say that to Destiny's face. And he'd be like, yeah, so I don't care. I'm a coomer. Right? I don't care. I'm a coomer. That's what he would say. Like, you guys, you got no understanding about the greater politics that happens within this sphere, about the different ways and archetypes of the different types of people that you're talking to. And it's the same thing with Rob. Rob will say that shit. He said shit like that to these fucking people. You know what I mean? We can share a platform. We can all be fucking adults and share a platform, and at the same time disagree with each other and still share the fucking... Isn't that amazing? It's like we're not 12 and go keck based after everything we say. Right?
Well, and like, one of the things, like, just first off, I do want to be clear. I've never... I don't know about Destiny's relationship. I don't give a fuck, right? But one of the things that's funny, like, in that sort of, like, you know, this... When they came at me and they're like, you know, you're out of shape. That's bad. It's like, who'd you vote for? Donald Trump. Peak shape, right? Peak shape. Traditional marriage is a good thing.
Also a coomer.
Right?
A coomer.
Donald Trump
Trump's a fucking coomer. Sorry, he is.
Trump cheated on his wife. I don't respect that, right? And so if you're this Giga Chad, like, you know, like it's amazing the selective morality that people have. You can engage in people and not sanction all of their beliefs or their lifestyle or thing. It's absolutely possible, right? And it would be a very boring
and necessary
platform. Right. What the fuck would it be? Right. First off, you know this, even people within your religious value system, you'll have disagreements on. Right. So imagine how boring and how, like, repetitive it would be if you're just like, I'll only interact with people that totally agree with me. I'll only put people on my platform that I built with my money that totally agree with me. Okay, that's going to be me and my wife. And she probably doesn't totally agree with it. That's it.
She doesn't.
That'd be the whole.
She doesn't.
In
fact, we have many political disagreements.
Right.
That's what makes her a great debater.
Right.
Right. But at the end of the day, what we can break down and we can understand from this is, like, one, it's true. It is my platform, and the truth is that they're mad. They're mad existentially that they understand that this can be opened up in a way that Cozy could not, because I don't have to perceive the threat that there'll be a hostile takeover that'll hijack my movement if I bring somebody on who's bigger than I am, not just physically, which is everybody in Nick Fuentes' case, but also size-wise in audience. So It's like, you can cope all you want. You can get as angry as you want. Anytime I do a show on Comfy, there's hundreds and hundreds of people who go through, right? You see that this type of backlash. It's seething anger, right? It's anger that more large personalities are coming on. They don't know what the fuck to do with it. But the thing is, it's like, still to this day, I always say, you can just go your way, stop with the bullshit, and I'll go mine. But are they going to do it? No. So here we are.
One of the things I always appreciated about you was, even from our first interactions, the first 2 times we talked, we were debating each other on issues, and it was evident to me as soon as we started like getting into the substance of debate, if I said something or asked you a question and you understood that question would kind of harm your position in some way, you still admit it, right? Mm-hmm. It's incredibly frustrating when you'll
good
debate
faith.
people and
good
they'll
faith.
Right, and I'll be talking to Pisco later. Pisco's, you'll ask a simple question like, "Hey, as someone who's concerned about the rule of law, do you think the FBI should verify evidence?"
Let me reframe what you really mean by that.
I'll talk for 8 minutes and not answer the question. It's like, just say yes or no and then expound upon it. And I think it's interesting because, again, it falls into that category of, people. I don't know this guy from anyone. I don't know this Adam Green character. I don't know the guy who's asking this question. But it falls into the category of they're trying to use your own integrity against you. Well, it's your platform, but shouldn't you be held to these standards, blah, blah, blah. And I do think that, it sounds like people might think I'm joking. I honestly think that you could give a well thought out answer as to why you do it. But the answer is go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's when people say, why did you ban that person? Because they felt like it, fuck off, next. Like, that's it. That's my response from now on to this shit, because I'm tired of listening to people that are going to use this double standard as a weakness to me. I don't give a shit. If you came to me with that sort of criticism, I trust you enough to be like, this is a criticism coming from good faith. It's worth listening to. I'm not going to listen to fucking people that I know just want to see me ruined, make these criticisms about you shouldn't be allowed to make these judgments on the issues you talk about or the people that you platform or the people that are in your chat. Fuck you is my answer to you, right?
Well, and there is no double standard anyway. That's the thing. Is like, you can always tell when a person's being a lying, piece of shit scumbag, bad faith, bad actor.
Thanks, Steve.
Because there is no actual double standard. And if they applied it to themselves, they would recognize really quickly that either A, they're holding me to a standard that they don't hold themselves to, or B, they really just believe that I should be held to a standard they're not held to. And it's like, look, both of those positions are equally stupid and foolish. The platform is for everybody. That's what it was built to be. It was built to be a platform for everybody. And I let leftists on. I let non-leftists on. There's more leftists coming on, and there's more right-wingers coming on. And I think that that's okay. People who want to engage in good faith, I think that that's fine. And here's my advice. If you don't like it, don't fucking use it. Right? It's really simple. Like, if you don't like the fact that creators are moving over to Comfy and they're getting rid of their Twitches and their YouTubes as fast as they fucking can to try to get their audiences over there so they don't have to deal with the bullshit, because they like making the most amount of money, because they like getting paid in a timely manner, because they like these things, don't use the platform, stupid. Right? It's really simple.
Well,
so I'll see this in debates sometimes. Okay. They'll be like, they'll say this, Rob. They'll go, "This debate's really boring," and I go, "Well, let me see you out the door." Yeah. Right? It's like, I don't want you to be bored. That's terrible. Yeah.
One of the craziest things I've ever seen. I've never seen, and again, you have to. I'm biased, right? I've already told you. I think Andrew is the best moderator out there. I think lefties that hate him would say that, right? I have been in a debate where I have watched Andrew be like, "I'm stopping this bloodbath. This is it. It's just fucking. It is. At this point." It's not going anywhere, because I've been involved in that, and it's a weird thing, because you're like, but content, yeah, but sometimes there's more to it than that, right? And it's just like that's the power that comes with like actually having a platform that you built yourself. Like, everyone can have opinions, and one of the things I love about you is you'll listen to advice from viewers, from content creators that are on Comfy, that come on the Crucible, but it is your show. Right? So you're fair in that you listen, and you'll make the decisions you want. And, it's something that's always like a pet peeve of mine when people tell me like, well, you need to talk about this, you need to talk about that, And sometimes it's like it's people giving suggestions, but so many times it's people that don't want you to succeed. And I guess I'm just repeating myself here, but that's my response. I'm tired of like, well, let me think this through. Let me tell you my reasons for doing this. Now, when it comes to that stuff, because when I started, my motto was, I will never ban anyone from my chat, ever. I won't do it. Right? Free speech, rah rah rah. And then all of a sudden you're like, let me give you an example of something that happens. I'll get someone from the trans mafia that will come on, right? And by the way, I don't mean every I've interacted with trans people that aren't about this, but there is certainly a huge sect of people that engage in that are trying to cancel you. They'll come on and be like, I demand you call me X. Then someone in my chat will be like, fuck off. I'm not calling you that, and then they get banned. Right? And those are people that are literally just, they're interacting with me and my community with the expressed attempt of leading to a result. And I think that this happened with some streamers that were hosting panels where they would bring me on and be like, okay, now we're going to talk about trans sports. Go ahead, Rob. What do you have to say? It's like they're setting you up to be like, we're gonna get your ass canceled right now. And I realize the way to deal with those people, it is to ban them. It is to just be like, fuck yourself. I don't have to listen to you. I'll say fuck off. I'll ban you if I feel like it. Do I get it right every time? No. Have I jumped the gun and banned people maybe I shouldn't have? Yeah. Do I bring those people back sometimes? Sometimes. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry to say this. It's my little channel. Go fuck yourself. You created a platform. Go fuck yourself. If people don't like it, I agree with you. Go elsewhere,
Well, you got to remember, too, that, there's another important aspect here, which is that all atheists are fundamentally anti-Christian. And the thing that's the best about people who set out to debunk God and Christ is they usually end up finding him. Right?
It's true.
When you go out looking, you usually end up finding, and that's what the Bible says. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be open to you, right? And that's the thing, is that people do tend to go out and debunk the Bible, end up often becoming the most vicious advocates for it, including people who are right now well-known Christian apologists who started as purple-haired freaks, right? Like, for instance, Jim Bob might be a good example of that. So never ever judge and say that there's no hope for any of them. There's
right.
even hope for guys like Vosh. There's even hope for guys like Destiny. Destiny may come around as well. Right now, he'd probably have to stop letting other dudes bang his wife. But I'm just saying, right, when you break all this down, recognize we get that there's no clean solution to anything, but we also know that there can be sane arbiters on the opposite side that can at least be dealt with. I'll take that. Because there's nothing else I can get, might as well take that. That's what's left to us.
I don't disagree, and that's why, and part of this is, like, maybe it's because I have a family. Maybe it's because I got things that are, people saw my kid Hank come. I'm like, you got a kid that awesome. It's like, it's easy to realize there's other priorities. Like, there was a time in my life where when I was in debate in college, that was it, man. I wanted to be the best debater in the country, policy debate in college. And even after that, like, if I was streaming back then, which I wasn't, that would have been my, like, super important. Then you meet a girl, then you get married, then you have a kid, and you're like, oh, all this shit.
Priorities change quickly.
Right. It puts it into perspective so fast. So it's easy.
Well, and who do these people always want around them? Who do the family men always want around them? They seem to always want the Christians around them.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean? And why wouldn't they? Those are the arbiters of the values that they hold dear, even if they don't know why they hold them dear. You know what I mean? They don't want these fucking glowhead leftist, dumb scumbag, progressive, can't tell the difference between a man and a woman people next to them and their families, trying to tell them in their own childless way, they never seem to have children or wives themselves, how they ought to be running their family dynamics and how they ought to be raising their children. Usually this comes from the fact that they are raised in broken homes and are making apologies for their whore mothers who are opening their legs all over the United States for any rando truck driver that wanted to go ahead and cream pie mommy. So I'm just going to let you know, right, that a lot of these people are fundamentally busted in the head and they're broken from the ground up. And to say anything short of that is lunacy, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Just lunacy.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why, like, I was saying this to Alex Stein, right? And I lump you in this category, and I hope I lump myself in that category. We have our moments, but in general, I think you'll probably agree with this, right? Did you see that clip when Alex was getting spit on by that girl from PSU, Penn State? Did you see that shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Like,
spits on his arm?
Right. Like,
yeah.
One of the things that I noticed that was like, it was shitty for various reasons and stuff. But I think you could even tell that some of the people around were like, and here's the reason. They don't know how to react to Alex, or to Alex, because at the end of the day, he's fucking likable. Right? Like, you could hate me, you could hate you, but the reality is we're kind of fun to interact with. We're kind of fucking likable. Even when we're likeable destroying you, it's like, well, it's a smile on their face. It's entertaining. It's someone, even people that dislike us like interacting with us. And I think, Alex Stein's got the same thing where when he goes to the protesters like, come on guys, come in for a photo. You can see that look in their face where they're like, I don't know how to react. This is actually pretty funny. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And there's something to be said of that. And I think that, one thing when people hear you talk, and me to a lesser extent, but when they hear and they talk about the importance of just like going on offense and telling people like, no, we're not going to like cuck to your position and things like that. It doesn't mean you have to go in there like, fuck you, but you don't have to do that. You could go in charming and funny and you could reciprocate to their intensity level, but you could also go on and just be like, I'm affable and I'm destroying you. I'm destroying your argument. And I think that that's something that I've been trying to focus on more, like, I'll give you a brief story in debate, right? There was this guy, he's one of the most interesting guys I've ever met, a great friend of mine who joined the debate team. Just an intent and I mean this is a great compliment, one of the strangest dudes you'd ever meet. Just his brain worked so differently. Fascinated by this guy. And one of the most genuine, authentic, blue-collar guys you'd ever meet. He gets into debate and he's too nice. He's good, but he's too nice. Yeah, you have a point. I guess my opponents are making good arguments. He's losing rounds. So I tell him, I was like, dude, you got to ump the intensity level. Like when you go in there, you got to be, you're confident, but you're being too affable. There, you got to up the intensity. So the round ends and I'm doing research in the hallway and his partner comes out shaking his head. He's like, well, he upped the intensity. And I was like, what happened? It's like he just drew a giant dick on a piece of paper, held it up and started screaming, fuck you to the and it's like,
so there's something. I mean, there's a lot to be said there when it comes to what you're talking about. Especially when it comes to debate tactics. So there are a lot of the people who are advocates for the match your energy. I do something a little bit different when I'm gauging an opponent that I've never dealt with before, something like this. I'll usually take a small shot, just something tiny. Yeah. You know what I mean? And usually pretty soft, like I'll make fun of something about them, make fun of something that they said, something like this. And I want to see if they're going to take a shot back. If they take a shot back, I know usually we're going to have pretty good chemistry, right? We're going to have a pretty good back and forth. We're going to have pretty good stylistics. We're going to have something good. If they don't take a shot back, right, then I'm like, okay, this fucking thing's going to go off the rails, right? This thing's going to go off the rails really, really quickly. But the thing is like, I don't know about you guys out in the audience, but I can take an educated guess about both Rob and his audience, which it works like this. When I'm around my friends, if we're not talking shit, something's wrong. Okay, if we're not horribly insulting to each other every minute of every hour of the day, there's something terrifically wrong going on in this situation. I mean, you should be laughing at everything they do, and they should be laughing at you. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had a barbecue where I've argued for, 2 hours with a friend over why my medium rare steaks are better than his medium rare steaks while we're eating the same steaks and just enjoying the hell out of ourselves. Men are assholes by nature, right? At least to some degree. We have to constantly test each other, poke at each other, make fun of each other. And this is part of male camaraderie. And it's like, debate's really no different than that. If you really want to have good chemistry, just like you would with a friend, you would always start out just kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit and seeing what type of person they are. They're the type of person going to be like, what kind of asshole shows up to a debate in a flannel and a trucker cap, you dumb retard? By the way, Carhartt sucks and you're a corporate shill. And then I'm like, I like this guy. We can have a great interaction here. You know what I mean? No, but if they go into the, well, let's do the peer-reviewed studies, and it's like, okay, well, now it's just attack mode, right? Now we're just going to go into brutal territory where I'm going to break down everything that I can. You'll see serious BPF. But my preference is that you keep it a little bit more in the mix of data, conversationalism, this type of thing, so that both sides can have an engaging conversation, debate. Plus, you can get that same information that you want out there. And how two people interact with each other is just as important to the quality of a debate as the substance of the debate itself.
Right, and I think that I totally agree with that. And then, like, there's another thing that happens sometimes, and it's when the jive, the chiding and stuff back and forth, like, someone will give it to you and you give it back and they can't accept it, right? Or they take it to some level that it's no longer like good-natured ribbing, and it's like, you know, now you could tell they're offended. And I've been in those sorts of debates, and actually, even though they oftentimes devolve into a big shit show, it's some of my favorite debates. Like, I was on this panel, it was the rare time I was on a panel on the side with Destiny, and it was talking about the Rittenhouse verdict, and there was this girl named Progressive Brat that was on there, and it was just like every fucking stereotype of an airheaded, like, woman streamer that has no fucking opinion, is just like some stupid, I mean, her name was Progressive Brat, that was the only thing she got right, you know, and she just fucking, right out of the gate, oh, you're a man, you're going to explain this to me. Who are you to fucking ask my opinions? And I forget who it was. There's some like reasonable right-winger that's like, well, that's kind of what we're here to do, is to explain our opinions on this. I thought it was a reasonable thing to ask. Oh, you're asking me because I'm the woman, blah, blah, blah. And like that debate was going, and I knew exactly what I was going to say. It's going. And everyone's trying to parse what she said in this. And he was the moderator. He's white knighting for her the whole time, you know. And I was like, may I interject? I think I could summarize what she's saying. She's saying, I'm a progressive because I don't believe in facts and I just have my feelings, and fuck you, you're a man. I just wanted to lower the temperature a little. And she just went apoplectic. Now, I wouldn't do that if you bring me on the Crucible and you're like, hey, you're going to debate this lady. I'm not going to like come out like fine. But that was the intensity that she had, and it was clear. There is no like logical argument I could make that will hit fucking home anywhere here. So if I gotta be here for 2 hours, I'm gonna have my fun. I'm gonna match your intensity, except I'll do it better than you. You know, and I think it's funny, all the crying you get, you know, where people, they want, you fucking inbred fucking redneck, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, hey, what'd you do with that guy that was trying to, you know, take pictures of BX Bullet's child? What'd you do with them? Oh, that's over the line. That's too much. You know, what'd you do to that? You know, you accused another streamer, another person, you accused them of really heinous shit of like sexual aggression. Oh, that's over the line. And it's like, I don't think so. I just really did it better what you did. That's all.
I think you're driving home a great point. Some of my favorite interactions have been with both Vosh and Destiny, and one of the things that makes them some of my favorite interactions is doing that kind of like the underhanded shots at each other, right? Kind of being assholes back and forth, but both sides can take the ribbing, and most importantly, both sides are likable. You know what I mean? Vosh comes off as likable. Destiny comes off as likable because they are likable, right? They're likable enough people. They're affable enough when you're having a conversation with them. Like, there's some genuinely funny shit that they say, I find myself laughing about, and vice versa. But then you take Hunter Avallone, right? Hunter Avallone. This guy is supremely unlikable. You know what I mean? Like, you can't take a shot without him going, okay, well, that's nice. So, and it's like, dude, come on. You know, like, lighten the fuck up. Relax a little bit. Let's try to have a nice, good engagement that's entertaining for everybody, this and that. And it's like, no, I have to double down on and you're offending an entire group of people, and you know what I mean? This type of thing. And you're just like, you sound like a shrill bitch, you know? Like, stop sounding like such a shrill little bitch. Try to have some kind of engagement like two men would have if they were actually trying to hash these things out. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, it's really amazing. I don't want to change the subject too much. One thing I wanted to ask you a question. You were scheduled till 9:30. Rachel's coming on afterwards. If you want to go straight through 10, I'm fine with that. Whatever you're comfortable with. And
yeah, I'm fine. I've got a couple of beers, hanging out with my friend. I ain't doing anything else tonight except relaxing. Debate on the Crucible for the night's already done. Massive trash talk extravaganza coming up very soon in the next 2 days. People are going to like that. It's a very good segment. People seem to enjoy it very much. Streamers from all across the political spectrum tune into the trash talk extravaganza, and they get pissed off, but they can't help but watch it. They can't help it. Who can blame them? Who can blame? It's the most epic masterpiece of a segment ever done in internet land. But anyway, go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, not to talk too much about what we have going on. I thought that it would be interesting to talk to you about sports. I actually had something I wanted to get your opinion on. So, in particular, combat sports. I heard that there's a big match coming up where this guy's going to fight someone with one arm tied behind his back. I don't know if you had any insights into the big fight that's coming up that you'd like to inform our audience with.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about boxing, as I have a bit of experience with it. Just a bit. Boxing is very, very tough. It's a very tough sport, and it's always been a very tough sport. Boxing is a mixture of strategy, physical strength, brutality, courage. You can mix almost every single aspect of masculinity and strategic thinking into a ball, and you come up with boxing, right? Boxing is brutal. And the problem is that people think, for reasons I don't seem to understand, that they're going to be good at it, even with no training, no background, never having done it a day in their life, nor trained for a match. And we saw this actually happen with Andy Warski, where Andy Warski got knocked out in just a few seconds because he was fighting with a trained boxing professional, Salt Poppy. This fight that I hear that's coming up at Ralphomania will be between the owner of Comfy.stream, Andrew Wilson, and a little midget hobbit person named Beardson Beardley. And that Andrew, who has a significant amount of a boxing experience, is willing to literally tie one of his hands to his side, let the hobbit take 2 swings before the match starts, and then, right, so I'm not going to stand there, of course, and let him hit me, but he can take the first 2 swings, and then, I think what's going to, here's my prediction for the fight. You ready? My prediction for the upcoming Ralphomania Beardson Beardley versus Andrew Wilson fight. It'll go like this. Beardson will take the 2 swings. He'll miss both when I get into my pattern. Right? He'll miss both, and then he'll run out of the ring. That's what I think. That's my prediction. He'll miss both, and then he'll run the fuck out of the ring as fast as he possibly can, and then he'll demand a surrogate come in and box on his behalf, in which case I will also demand a surrogate come in and box on my behalf, which is only fair. So this is my prediction for Ralphomania. Just saying, right? This is what I think the most likely outcome will be. And of course, you can donate to the Beardson Beardley Beatdown Fund on dono.chat. That's going to be very helpful. And we're going to do some drives to make sure that we can fund me flying out to take care of this very obnoxious problem of a hobbit who likes to run his mouth, but will soon have my fist inside it. So, just saying, that's my predictions in combat sports, Rob. I appreciate you asking my opinion on it.
Yeah. And I just want to let the audience, because people were asking my audience, is this for real? This is not a joke. This is real. Ralphomania is Ralph. I forget Ralph's last name.
Ethan Ralph.
Ralph
is the last name.
Ralph. Well, there you go. It's his event that he's putting on, right? There's all kinds of crazy shit happening there. And my understanding is the way this came about was you basically mocking Beardson, and you were like, I beat your ass with one hand tied behind my side. And he was like, you shamed him into accepting.
Now, we do have a recent poll. We do have a recent poll on who will win. 97% say BPF with one hand tied behind his back. But, I mean, who's to say, right? Anything can happen. He could get in a lucky punch, right? He's got the 2 free swings. I don't think he'll connect with either of them, just to be perfectly honest with you. Once I pattern, I don't think he'll be able to do it. But we'll see. Maybe Beardson will jump up like Little Mac. Like Little Mac from Punch-Out, he'll jump up and just, I extend his reach all the way to the top and barely touch my chin and knock me unconscious. Perhaps Beardson will be able to jump 4 feet off the ground in order to hit me in the chin. Okay? Perhaps that might happen. It could.
Theoretically.
But I doubt it.
Listen,
I doubt it.
here's what I'm wondering, right? So 40 years from now, when they make a movie about your life, is this going to be like Man on the Moon, where we find out through Andy Kaufman's biopic that this was a big work, like Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler, and in reality, Beardson and BPF set up this big fake feud, you know, for this conflict to occur, and in reality, they were in cahoots for the content, and we find out 30 years later.
I assure you that the enjoyment that I'm going to derive from this is going to, no matter what happens, even if he takes the 2 free ones and just runs out of the ring, which is what I predict will happen. I predict he'll just throw in the towel, run out of the ring as fast as he possibly can, in which case, perhaps he'll start crying. That's a possibility too. I'm not sure, right? But even if that happens, I'm going to enjoy that outcome almost as much as I'm going to enjoy just a single connection and Beardson falling on the ground and writhing in agony, in pure agony. Not because he was dropped, but because of the hysterical laughter of me falling down next to him, holding my belly, laughing that hysterically. That's the problem. I might knock myself out from lack of air, laughing at Beardson. It's possible. So, you know, these things do happen in contact sports, Rob. You never can tell what's going to happen.
But here's where you go wrong, right? Here's what
we need to have you there announcing. You know what? We need to do a Rob Mofoin announcement stream. You can be like the guy you can do the whole thing and be like, Beardson, or you can be like, BPF's coming out. He's looking very fit. This ought to be, if I'm looking at the extension of reach, right? Oh, these fighters look very primed, ready to go. Oh, Beardson jumped. Oh, it's almost 6 feet off the ground. He almost connected with BPF's chin. It was insane. But he meant, you know, I want to see it. And I want you to use the auctioneer voice as you covered. In fact, I'll do a pay-per-view event on Comfy, hosted by Rob Mofoin for the fight, where Rob Mofoin can use his best announcer voice. BPF comes out one-handed to knock unconscious Beardson Beardley in seconds. Right? Everybody ought to enjoy that, you would think.
Did you ever see the meme of like when...
I hear he's training. He's training.
Oh.
I hear he's training. Okay, now this is important. The Beardson Beardley training regimen, right? He wakes up in the morning. This is what I'm told anyway. He wakes up in the morning and he gets his takeout food, right? It's delivered to him. And then he goes and he streams and he endlessly complains about the fact that he got a piece of chicken with no bun. And the reason that they deliver a piece of chicken with no bun to his house, which is just him because unfortunately his wife left him. His chicken sandwich, which is not a sandwich because they don't like him and only drop off the chicken, he'll bitch about that for 6 hours, right? Then he primes his right hand for his right hook by masturbating for the next 2, goes to sleep, wakes up, rinses and repeats. So it's the right hook I have the most concern about.
Yeah.
And that's I just wanted to let you know this training regimen does look brutal.
Yeah.
It looks brutal.
Here's the thing, though. Like, you could joke around about this, but let's say you do knock him out, right? And he just, like, pisses himself. You hit him, and he pisses himself in the center of the stage. Like, you think you're so awesome. Yeah, you have a wife, you have kids, you have an awesome family. You build a platform. You're considered even by people that hate you to be one of the best moderators on this online sphere. But do you have a backstage pass to America First that Nick Fuentes gave you? So you ain't shit for a man no matter what happens, BPF.
Okay, so this is fucked up, okay, because this is true. This is fucked up, and it is true. Beardson Beardley does have free backstage passes at AF. I, unfortunately, made the blacklist. Myself and my wife and only 2 other people, we made the blacklist of ban on site, not even allowed to go in the building. Me and my humble wife, a housewife, a humble housewife who eviscerates feminists. We were on the ban on site, never let them in the building, right? On the blacklist, 1 of 4. So it is true. I will never have the status of Beardson Beardley, of being able to go in to a rented out building and be disavowed by the next day. I'll never be able to feel that for myself, but I digress. I am sorry about that, Rob. There's nothing I can do about it, you know. Nothing I can do about it. I know I'll always be low on the totem, maybe not as low as Beardson on the totem pole, but, low on the totem pole.
Well, I think,
True.
I got to be honest. I hesitated to bring you on because I'm still holding out hope that someday Nick might tap me on the shoulder and say, Rob, you could come stand backstage. Hey, there's a chance Michelle Malkin will see you before she has to disavow all of us. You could get in on that great action. I mean, in all seriousness, like, how unbelievable. Like, to me, it was like, there's all sorts of things to pick on people for: physical appearance, relationship, and things like that. We all build ourselves up in different ways, some more humbly than others. When the greatest thing you could say about yourself that you have pride in is, hey, Nick Fuentes says I could be backstage at his event. Like, in all honesty, that's one of the saddest and I have a convertible. Like, and not saying that with a sense of because that's something you say like ripping yourself.
It's a convertible in the loosest sense of the word. If you buy a car that doesn't have a roof because you only had $400, right? It is technically a convertible. I agree that's true, right?
Yeah, my friend got a golf cart. He ripped the top off.
Look, I would be mad too. Yeah, I'd be mad too. I mean, if you're diametrically opposed to Jews and e-girls, and a Jewish e-girl is taking all of your internet money, night after night, right? And all you can really do is seethe. I mean, I could see where that would be very upsetting. It would be very upsetting. I still do feel bad about Beardson Beardley, whose wife left him, by the way. It's a terrible thing. I'm not going to lie. It is terrible. It's awful. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but that is what happened to the poor guy. I wish him all the best in this fight. I really do. He's going to fucking need it. Okay, he's going to need it. Like, you can't imagine he's going to need it. But, it's okay. It's okay. We'll make the calls out. Hopefully his family will watch live, right? Somehow, I do know that somehow, regardless of how badly Beardson Beardley gets beaten in this fight, it will somehow be wrapped up into a win, right? It will somehow be wrapped up into, look at us, we won again. Complete and total. Beardson will be bleeding on the ground, right? It's like, total victory. Total Groiper victory. He's like fucking twitching, Total Groiper victory. That's what'll happen, man. Just saying.
When you talked about Ralph with that, it reminded me of a joke I read once. Like, there's this Jewish guy and his wife, and he's having trouble satisfying his wife in bed, so they go to a therapist.
Oh, yeah, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, right. Oy vey.
Terrible.
So they go to this therapist, and the therapist is like, here's what you do. Go to the beach and find a strapping young lad, and then get him to watch you make love to make love to each other, and he's going to wave a white towel over you while you're making love. And that will bless you, and you'll be able to satisfy your wife. So they go find this strapping young lad, and he proceeds to have sex with his wife, and the young man waves the towel, and nothing happens. And so they're really worried, and they go back to the therapist, I guess it's a rabbi, I'm supposed to say. They go back to the rabbi, and the rabbi's like, okay, here's what you do. Go back to that beach, find the strange strapping young lad, and this time he has sex with your wife, and you wave the towel, right? So they find the strapping young lad, goes back, has incredible sex with this woman's wife. It's the best sex she's ever had. It lasts for like 3 hours while the husband's waving the towel the whole time over it. So it finishes up, and the strapping young lad's exhausted, and the Jewish gentleman has a big smirk on his face, and he goes up to the young guy and goes, now that's how you wave a towel, son. Like, that's Ralph getting his ass kicked. Like, I won. I did it, man. That's when you were talking about that, that's what I was thinking of. Is like that joke was like, you got it. But honestly, I am going to reach out and see if Beardson wants to come on and talk shit on you about this fight. I would love to hear.
I think that's fair, considering that it's that you now have the exclusive BPF pay-per-view rights.
Yep.
Exclusive, and 100% of that money will go towards Rob Mofoin's child's, not college fund, because you'd be stupid to send him to college, but it'll go towards his has to have really nice shit and toys because he's Hank Fund. How about that? They have to have really nice shit and toys because they're awesome Hank Fund. That's where all the pay-per-view money for the Beardson Beardley beatdown event will go. That sounds just peachy to me, Rob. Sounds great. Sounds wonderful.
And I'll even say this. I'm not, as far as the trash talking, I'm not going to.
I mean, he has to do it. Is he going to take toys out of a kid, away from a child?
That'd be terrible.
Is he literally going to take the fucking candy out of Hank's mouth Is that what he has to come on and talk some shit?
Yeah.
He has to.
And listen,
Has
if you're a fan of Beardson, or if you're Beardson and yourself listening, I swear to you, like I honestly swear this, I will leave you trash talk to your heart's content, and I'll laugh if it's funny. I will. Like if you say some funny shit about BPF, I'd laugh. It'd be nice to get some trash talking to go with the inevitable fight. And look, I hate to give the game away. I heard someone say this, and you kind of shush them, like. So we'll just tell this little secret share between us that are watching. Even if Beardson wins, he loses. Who the fuck agrees to take a fight with a one-armed man? It's like,
well, that's the thing is that you don't actually want the one-legged man to win in the ass-kicking contest, right? That's not what you want. But the thing is, it's like it's high stakes for me. I have a lot riding on this. All of my self-esteem and everything else is going to be wrapped up in knocking out Beardson Beardly round 1. And if I don't, the shame.
People are asking when it is, Ralph Mania.
Well, we don't have a date yet for Ralph Mania, unfortunately. I have been requesting the date. I am happy, though, right? Because Beardson says when Ralph Mania happens, he's going to go there. He's promised. He's not going to back out. He's training. In fact, I have Twitter DMs from multiple of his sycophants saying, "You better be training because Beardson's taking this seriously." I gotta tell you, it is true that I'm eating lots of Hot Pockets, ice cream, drinking beer, and smoking cigarettes. I'm not really training very hard. I'm not going to lie. I'm not taking the fight very seriously. I'm not going to lie about that either. Right, we'll give Beardson Beardly every advantage we can possibly give to him. Right, we want to make sure that when he goes up against a one-armed man, that it's fair and square. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and yes, I already said with Big Tech, I will absolutely take on Big Tech. It just has to be the day after, which is fair. You know, do 2 fights in a row. That's ridiculous.
Right.
But of course, I'll take him on the day after. He wants something a little more bare knuckles and illegal, though, because he's a psychopath. You know what I mean? But whatever.
I don't know.
Wicked Wally, hang on. Wicked Wally in your chat says it's January 14th. Do we know for sure, Wicked Wally, that January 14th is the day?
Well, I was gonna say, like, you should reach out to Beardson and get this assurance, right? Because the way things goes in that crew, who the fuck knows by the time this comes around that Ralph and America First and the Groypers don't hate each other. So you should get some sort of assurance that one way or another, come hell or high water, even if they have a falling out with Ralph, that it's going to happen in some shape or form, because I could see that as being a potential loophole that's like, well, Ralph's not really associated with what we do anymore, so we won't be partaking in that.
Well, honestly, if it's January 14th, Wicked Wally, and that's what they keep promoting, then we will raise the funds, and I will be out there January 14th, okay? And I will walk out with my plaid shirt on, and first round with one hand tied to my side, knock out Beardson Beardly. It'll be very quick, it'll be very painful for him, and I will enjoy it very much. Just saying, right? But I think it's going to be him doing these 2 wild hobbit flails and then running out of the ring as fast as he possibly can to demand a surrogate. That's what I think. Just saying.
I'm looking forward to the spectacle, the grandeur, the spectacle, Ralphomania. It's
well, I'll tell you, after I knock Beardson Beardly out round 1, I will pull the cigar out of Ethan Ralph's mouth and smoke it, because it will then be my cigar. And what's he gonna do about it? What's he gonna do? It's my cigar, Ethan. Right? Those are the rules. Okay.
Come to brush his teeth. Yeah,
oh yeah. Well, wait. Yeah, that's true. I don't want those diseases. Maybe I'll bring like one of those like plastic slip-ons, right? So you just like slip it on the back of the cigar, and then I'll smoke it, right?
That's funny. That'd be great. No, it's funny. Now my wife's in my chat like, shit, we got it. Now he's fighting for Hank's honor. We gotta. Well,
not just for Hank's honor, but the fact that every child Hank's age should have the perfect amount of Legos for their father to step on and swear about. This is completely and totally necessary, and I feel like if anybody can be the fight announcer and be the head of the pay-per-view and reap the casholes from that, to buy Hank endless amounts of Legos to torture themselves with, it might as well be Rob. Be Rob.
I'd be remiss, like, I don't know what, Rachel's coming on next. You could stay on with us if you want or whatever. But I'd be remiss. The whole point of this stream was, despite disagreements I might have on some issues with Republicans, thinking that we need to push the Democrats out in this election. Do you have any predictions that you see happening Tuesday? Do you think that Republicans win the House and Senate, or
it won't be a sweep? I predict that Republicans will pick up 6 seats, and that Democrats will maintain 4. There will be a power imbalance swing to the Republican side, but it'll be minor. It's the national election that's going to come up at the presidential level where you're going to see the next actual sweep. Right now, on the heels of abortion, Democrats are very, very, very much mobilized. But what they have going against them, and this is how sick our society is, right, is gas prices. Gas prices have pissed people off to the umpteenth degree everywhere, including people who are pro-choice. And when they have to take their bodily autonomy and put it up against their wallet, most of them seemingly will choose their wallet. This is how fucking sick progressives are. So this is my prediction. I can actually give you a list for which of the seats that I think are going to go Republican and Democrat, but I predict 6 and 4. And I think that Republicans will hold a slim majority. Biden's particularly worried, but he's docile and retarded. So, you can't really take anything Biden says. The Democrat strategists at the top, they are very much confident in at least 4 of those seats, and so am I. So that's kind of my prediction.
Do you think if that happens, or if Republicans pick up more, do you see them sort of trying to throw Biden under the bus in these next 2 years and dissuading him from running because they're going to need?
Well, no, they don't have anybody else to put up. So the Trump phenomenon is not done yet. And Donald Trump's best play at this point to keep his ass out of jail is to run for president again and say it's a political persecution, which, by the way, it always has been. It's always been a political persecution. I don't give a shit about what Trump did before Trump was president of the United States and went after the deep state. So this is a power play for sure. If Republicans have even a slim majority, the Democrats are in huge trouble, because this political persecution of Trump, if he runs again, and he's slated to announce his run very soon, and he still has the populist vote. And I think that he has if he went up against Biden again tomorrow, Trump wins in a landslide. There's no doubt. Yeah. There's not enough EF to compensate for the type of landslide that would go towards Trump. So if you see even a slight Republican majority, the Democrats are in huge trouble, and the chances that they're able to prosecute Trump are going to significantly decrease post-presidential announcement. And then once he is president, you've got a big problem, because he's really fucking mad. He's really angry, and he's going to put people in those positions this time around, I think, where he can really clean house. So
I hope so.
This is not wishful thinking. This is how politics right now is working. So, yeah, well, E stands for election, and F stands for you should know. Okay, so anyway, these are things we can't talk about on these platforms. Yeah, welcome to YouTube. So, in any case, that's my prediction. I'm going to switch out with the wife. Thanks so much for having me on your 24-hour awesome live stream.